Sanitation Authority doing business as Alexandria Review. I want to welcome everyone here today. Can the board look at the agenda? And we have the motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Tab 1 is the consent agenda. If we could review that and look at review the minutes for the April 15th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item 5, board administrative items. Do we have any reports out from Finance and Audit Committee?
We had our public hearing on budget Saturday, and after a wonderful job presentation that's posted. Anybody watching and listening right now, it is really worthwhile to go look at an understanding of budget. And tonight we have an updated version of the budget, which is the same bottom line budget, about the information, amends the information. The chart here that has all that I asked staff to put together. We have a very confusing, because of apologies to Fairfax, but because we have a Fairfax contract and we have Alexandria customers, our budget has all these parts that come together. And I thought it would be useful to have, with an ongoing part of the budget, one chart took all the funds and showed the flow of funds, came to the bottom line total. So staff has done that. And I think also the other thing has been added is the financing of the CIP for all 10 years. So you can see it all the way out rather than just. So it's good updated information, but the budget in a sense the same one. We operated the capitals in front of us on Saturday, subject to public hearing, still stands.
I want to thank the board members and staff for the outstanding presentation that was provided. It was well done and it's very well together. So thanks for that. The board calendar, there's the updates from the board calendar. The governance meeting, next governance meeting has been set for October 7th, which is a Tuesday. October. Okay, Sam, do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to unfinished business.
Just a note on the budget. On your Go portal, you'll see a link to go to the presentation from Saturday. And if there's been staff, we're going to be sending that out with our mailer this month and also include it in those stuff as well. So the next email you'll see, it'll be with our regular email, we have a presentation. But right now it's on the Go portal. We're not today.
One other item from the board calendar, please mark your calendar for the Hofstra dedication on June 17th. That should be a good program, a good presentation. June 7th, I'm sorry.
Just before we get started, just some new faces for staff. Maybe I'll start with our safety manager, Alex. Will you stand up? Quick introduction to the board.
Safety and security.
Also, Mallory Orms, our new sustainability manager. Mallory. And then joining us tonight from Hazen Sawyer's Kelly Landry. She's supporting us on our sustainability initiative. Also, really quick note in the green folder, Mr. Robinson will talk about this a little bit later during unfinished business, but there is a update to the rate setting policy that does have a draft outline of a late fee policy. So the board has that. We don't need to take any action on it tonight. It's for your information to take that review, and maybe we can take action at the next board meeting. You'll hear the presentation tonight. The doc, you all have a hard copy of the document and any adjustments. And there is one additional slide that we added to the late fee policy presentation based on questions we received from the board in advance to me. Do we have a recap for Delray Garden Fest?
Yeah, so I attended the event. So Justin was there with his family, and so I think it went really well. I was a little bit nervous at the beginning. I said, okay, what I'm going to say. But the staff really did a very good job. They provided all the talking points. We had the deputy mayor who was there. And also we have, of course, we have Justin there. Justin Mr. Cobb. I felt that the way he exactly told Sam told me, don't worry, everything
Yeah.
just go, because I was a little bit nervous. I said, I have never done this type of event before, and I'm going to be standing in the park and with the microphone talking to everybody. So, but everything, I really thank the staff. You know, they prepped me and they provided me with the talking point, and came out there also. They updated the list that I had. He told me everything.
Next up, presentation on the multi-level rate structure customer analysis.
Just a quick update from last month. Ms. Leon's going to walk through the customer sample size. So what we presented last month, it's the same presentation. We just are using current billing data from our customers. The last time we presented this was in using 2018 data. So this one's going to run through a quick update on this. Ms. Hammer, this will be new to you since it's given the meeting.
Something new, so I'm not repeating what you said. So, Cameron, for your benefit, we ran through these slides last month. So this is really a follow-up to the action items that were identified in the 2025 board retreat, and it's kind of the first step as we move towards looking at rate structure analysis. And it's the proposed approach was to identify a customer sample size. And this presentation hits on what the customer sample size looks at. This is a slide that just shows one of the that was presented in some form at the board retreat that looks at equivalent residential units and what it would look like to change our rates moving towards that type of rate structure as an alternative. This was a presentation or a map of our commercial and other public agency customers. And so we layered on taking a sample basically of a smaller subset of those customers. And this just shows that same sample as overlaid with the land use. So this is again, that the slide has been updated. We had presented data or these slides using 2018 data. We updated it using 2025 data and are presenting just the updated numbers from that standpoint. So this looks at the distribution of across meter sizes. Again, probably slight variations between the two data sets, but a similar trend in both. You can see with the majority of bills being at the lower end of the spectrum, and then it kind of peters off as long. And then this just reflects the sample population has the same trend. This looks at the cost per 1,000 gallons and just indicates that some of our customers are above or largely below the residential average cost of per gigawatt is reflecting the trend that we discussed at the board retreat. And then we started to look at kind of how do we categorize this sample and how would we present this information, or as we look at bill impact analysis, how will we come back to the board and actually present analysis? What types of categories would we use? We had presented these 11 categories at the last board meeting. We had some discussion internally and as to whether or not it would make sense to consolidate into smaller subset of categories. But I think that just the recommendation from staff is that this gives some diversity to different types of uses across our customer or commercial and other public agency customers, enough for us as we're looking at bill impacts, we can kind of see a broad range of impacts in categories. So this slide reflects updated data, but no major impact or no major changes from what we recommended last month. And then this is just, again, the flow percentage by those categories, and you see it last month it was 75%, so slightly increased multifamily percentage across the categories. So really, this was kind of refining the data with the goal of coming back to the board in July and presenting bill impact analysis across those 11 categories or 11 subcategories.
I'm curious, your slide 12. What percent by category? What percentage of single-family residential connections is there in relation to multifamily? Yes, okay.
Follow.
I think the other analysis on that multifamily piece, we're trying to identify as part of this, which units are master meter versus which are individual meter each unit. So that's something we're gonna try and work on with the desktop survey, make some assumptions based on the data, at least for the customer sample, maybe apply that ratio moving forward.
The other thing that'll be good to get a better handle on is how often frequent the billing of the tenant is of meter, whether it's sub-metered or whether or not it's just a number of landlords just take the total bill divided by number of units or number of bedrooms in the unit and just say, here is your electricity, water, sewer bill that have the tenants pay. And some landlords don't. But I think we're going to find if those units are owned by investment firms, real estate investment trusts, garden apartment, I think we're going to see more of that divided up. And actually, when we think about who is going to pay the difference between our current rate structure and the next rate structure, it's not just the classification of who has the meter, it's what do they do when they get the bill, who's the ultimate. That's gonna be very hard, probably impossible to get a subjective, data on it, but it'll be important to get a better handle on it. So when we're making decisions, we have that as our information package.
So also during the budget cycle, we got a question about how we assess late fees. We thought that since we're in the middle of our budget cycle, we would go through and give a brief presentation on our late fees process, given that we've seen an increase in revenue this year due to re-implementing late fees last year. So Mr. Robertson's going to walk through review of late fees. And as we mentioned, the additional slide that's in the presentation is also in your green sheet.
So again, Justin kind of stole some of the talking points. Just to give you all a kind of a high level overview of how we manage late fees so that, if there are any changes that you want to make, you have the ability to do so with knowing the background. So first and foremost, rates, rules, and regulations is what's currently set late payment. So it's listed in the rates, rules, and regulations. This is the exact verbiage that's in there. It's basically 10% of an unpaid balance for accounts that's not paid within 21 days. So on the 22nd day, you could bill them a late fee. The Virginia Water and Waste Authorities Act also has limitations listed in the law. So this is the code, and it basically limits late fees to up to 10% on delinquent accounts. So we put the primary purpose of late fees in here. I think what we saw is that we gained some additional revenue basically from implementing late fees. Not really the primary purpose of late fees, though. It's to encourage folks to pay their bill on time. Revenue is kind of an additional outcome there. And then for customer service best practices, these are things that we implemented on our customer service portal. So in addition to the 21 days listed in the rates, rules, and regulations, we provide a 6-day grace period, which is generous by utility standards. We waive late fees upon the first request. So if any customer calls, basically no questions asked. Late fees. We implement a 10% late fee only on that the last month's past due balance, not the total past due balance, last billing periods past due. And then again, this is just kind of a redundant point, but late fees are not applied to payment plan balances or past due balances beyond the previous month. Typically, what we're seeing is a residential late fee is about 3. So this kind of further breaks down the revenue piece that we were talking about. So monthly late fee is basically charged to both residential and commercial customers. You can see here in this pie graph, the vast majority of the money is actually coming from commercial accounts. So there's about 1,000 accounts a month that are late. Those account for about $92,000 per month. And then for residential customers, there's about 4,000 late accounts per month. And that's generating about $13,000. Any questions about? So just to kind of walk through what a customer bill would look like, gives you kind of an example of back-to-back months here. So the first month, again, this person is late for 1 month. This is their previous bill amount. This is $40. The 10% late fee applies to that. So you have a late fee of $4. And then just to kind of walk through the second month where it gets a little bit more complicated, the 10% is only applying to this $39.65 from the previous month. So you're basically only billing that monthly period and not the total balance. So it's not applying for the $83. It's the previous bill. Just kind of a quick history. Some of this is kind of difficult to dig up beyond 2012, but we know that Virginia American Water provided our customer service practices. I did reach out to Virginia American Water to see if they had a history on the late fees prior to that. So we're kind of flying in the dark there. In 2012, we took over our own customer service, and that's when we implemented our first late fee, and it was 10%. That ran until 2020 when everybody's late fees were suspended during COVID. And then we did not implement a late fee again until May of 2024, when we began disconnections. And we sort of proactively rolled out that late fee as a way to encourage payment before we rolled out any form of disconnection. That's the thought process. So how we use late fees, kind of how this fits into the puzzle of trying to encourage on-time payment and avoid disconnection for non-payment, is first, your bill is mailed, so that's day one. You'll receive payment reminders if you've signed up for them via text or email. Otherwise, you would receive a robocall right up until the day before the late fee is applied. So you'll get a robocall that says you're going to have a late fee if you don't pay your bill today. And then on day 27, so that's after 21 day and 6-day grace period, the late fees and notifications begin on your bill. So that late fee is applied, and then the notifications will show up on your next.
Question, if I have didn't pay 1 month and didn't pay the second month, but the third month I pay let's say the amount of the third month's bill. How does the late fee then, do you apply the amount that's paid? Oh, they're paying the third month, apply it to that. Are you saying, no, the oldest bill you have outstanding is what in effect gets, your money goes to first, and therefore the 10% applies also to the third month bill? So the last version you just gave, basically anything that you're paying goes to the whole. So after 60 days, that's when we begin our disconnection for non-payment notification, basically. So that's, please pay your bill to avoid disconnection for non-payment. We have the lead, promise pay, payment plan, notifications go up as well. I think we've kind of covered that previously. That's where that piece fits in. And then after 90 days, if you have not signed up for a payment plan, you have not paid your bill, you have not reached out to us in any way, then you're basically up for disconnection for non-payment. Now, we, at this point, are not disconnecting on a monthly basis. At like an apartment complex,
Oh, yes, we were disconnect.
so we don't disconnect.
You know.
And I think Mark Jinks was kind of talking about this earlier, but depending on how they bill, like they can charge their own late fees. Sorry, Mr. Jinks. But they can pay, so they can charge late fees as an apartment complex. They have the right to do that. So we don't disconnect multifamily. They can't.
That's the reason we don't have this. We've been investigating that.
Okay, so we pulled late fees from sort of neighbor utilities, just so we had comparison here. Prince William and Fairfax are essentially the same. It's 10% after 30 days. Virginia American Waters is a little bit more complex. They charge 1.5% after 30 days, but it's on the entire balance. So where we're just charging, where most utilities actually are just charging current month's past due balance, they're charging on the entire balance. DC Water, again, 10% after 30 days. They do have a note on their website that says they charge an additional 1% per month after 60 days compounded. Ends up being slightly more than 10%. WSSC has the lowest rate here, 5% after 30 days. Again, just to the previous month's outstanding balance. And then Alex Renew, 10% after 21 days with a 6-day grace period sort of baked in there as well. Part of the reason we have a 21-day 21-day late fee period is because we're not managing our water meters for cells. So we have to bake in additional time for basically Virginia American Waters to do a meter read, provide the information and then for us. That's part of the reason we have a shorter timeline. I think most of the other groups probably handle their own metering and have less of a delay there. Data transfer.
We charge late fees to governmental agencies.
Do we?
Do we?
Uh,
If the
we
city's late, the federal government's late, they pay.
You're right. That's all I had. Mr. Carl touched on this earlier, but we did put in some language into the
Thank you. It's very useful.
Those are the, like, they're being your board members, and reinforce the rate setting policy, the short narrative, we can circulate the Word document again with the board members. One making a revision, we can still have time to do it. Part of this for, as part of this budget cycle, we'll update the rate code and regulations.
We didn't comments back on this.
If, what we'd like to do is, so if we update it as part of this budget cycle, the board will adopt the rate rules and regulations and budget document at the next board meeting, which is in June, over the next several weeks before, I'd say 2 weeks from now, we get comments back. And that way we can take action essentially on the policy at the board meeting, and make any adjustments to the rate rules and regulations. I think I'd have a better idea getting feedback from the board between now and our next meeting.
For June 3rd. Anything else on this subject?
Any legal, any response back on the question of whether or not late fees are rate revenues or non-rate revenues? That's still an open question.
We had a long period of discussion today about that. We are building into it. Ms. Waters, do you want to maybe give us, summarize our discussion?
So, yeah, so they,
Maybe for the board, that we got the question was, is can we use late fees as non-rate revenue to be put towards our rate program, like we were doing with some of the other non-rate revenue funds, which will give us a lot of.
and so we looked at the master invention. Late fees fall within the definition of revenue, so then it goes to the prioritization of how they're spent. And so if it is spent on the various categories which are operating, that's eight of them, then it goes into general revenue fund, which can be spent discretion. So we're checking with accounting principles to see what restrictions are there. But we spoke to bond counsel who felt that it would fall within that surplus general fund that could be applied to. We'll get back to you once we move through the full accounting stuff.
Yeah, we were surprised by the response from bond counsel. It was less. conservative than we had expected.
Same bond, same master invention. Same bond council.
Thank you.
Alex, I'm gonna steal some of your thunder. So we've thank you, Billy, for important out here, but we spent the last year really focused on staff safety, behavioral safety with our organization, and every person who works here has gone through what Alex is going to talk about. We're coming up in June. We wanted to do this last year with the board, but we didn't have time on the agenda to do it. But we're coming up on June with the safety month at Alex there. We gave you a little overview of how we engage staff in safety months through some of our other presentations, but we wanted Alex to come in and give a presentation to the board and also assign you a little bit of homework so that during safety month, the board can share some of their safety practices and safety stories, because for us, safety doesn't start and end at our community, it goes home with you as well. So. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to share with you some updates about our safety program, as well as some of the exciting initiatives like Mr. Carl was talking about that we are engaging in here. When it comes to Alex New, safety is our top priority. With our goal when it comes to safety is simple. Our goal is to ensure that Thank you. Our goal is to ensure that every person in our facility goes home safely every day. The goal is simple, but doesn't always mean that it's easy. So to help us reach that goal, we rolled out what we call our 5 basic safety commitments. Our 5 commitments are things that every Alex New employee commits to help keep each other safe. The first one is to communicate their expectations about their personal safety. If something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel like we're doing the job right, we expect and they commit to speaking up and saying, hey, this doesn't feel good. Let's find a safer way to do it before we go forward. The second commitment is making sure that we are providing any and all resources that we need to make sure that our teams get their job duties done in the safest possible manner. Whether it's a tool that works appropriately, a piece of PPE, a piece of equipment, or a supply, we want to make sure our teams have the right tools and equipment to make sure that they can do their job safely each day. The third commitment is to make sure that we are celebrating safety successes. Because when you think about safety, the end result of doing a job safely is nothing happens. When the end result of doing something is nothing, it's very easy to lose focus on how important that is. That's why we want to make sure we're all committed to calling it out when it happens, when someone goes above and beyond, when someone is doing a consistent job of keeping each other safe. We want to celebrate that so we don't lose sight of it. The fourth of our basic commitments is to understand, communicate, and when necessary, discipline for safety. And we want to understand when something does happen, whether it's an incident or a close call, what the root causes of that were, right? How did this happen? What can we do in the future to make sure that this doesn't happen again? We want to communicate that so that everyone understands that information, so that everyone has that same skill level, that same amount of knowledge so that they can prevent that from happening with their teams, their departments. And when necessary, we want to do discipline so that people know we take it seriously. It is very important to us. It is the most important to us. And then our fifth commitment is to make proactive safety changes to make sure that everyone does make it home safe every day, right? We don't want to wait for something to happen. We want to make sure that we are going out, we are identifying hazards, we are analyzing them, we're developing corrective actions and making sure that we get things taken care of before anything ever happens. Okay, perfect. One of the things that we're doing to help us reach this goal is a complete revamp of our safety manual. We're taking the whole safety manual, each one of our policies and procedures, we're bringing it up to date, making sure it aligns with current regulations as well as current industry best management practices. So we're reimagining everything because we have a lot of high hazard work that we have to do. We have confined spaces that may or may not have hydrogen sulfide in it. We have a lot of moving equipment, machinery, energized electrical parts that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And we want to make sure that our team knows the safe way to deal with those so that there's no confusion, because when there's confusion, that's when tragedy happens. We want to make sure everybody knows the proper way to do things so that they can interact with their jobs and go home safe every day. A couple things that we've done about that, we've updated our trainings and meetings to make sure we're starting each of our meetings with the safety mode. So we always start with safety first. We take a look at our hazard identification analysis procedures. We'll talk about that in another slide, but we've updated how we do those. Safety incident reporting procedures. We've launched a new dashboard to make it easy and intuitive for people to report incidents, to report close calls, near misses that they experience, and for us to identify that, take that information, analyze it, and get better insight into what's happening out there and how we can better support our team in the field. And then our safety inspections and audit procedures. And one of the things that we've done to really help with our safety inspections and audits is we've brought up a team of people that we call our safety specialists. Our safety specialists are 11 individuals from across the organization who have gone through extensive training and mentorship to really kind of get a foundation in safety. And they act as our safety representatives, our safety mentors out in the field. So anytime we get a new employee in, they are assigned to a mentor who helps them understand, how we do things, how to do a job safely, where to find the tools and equipment, PPE that they need. And they kind of bring them up in the culture, this interdependent safety culture that we're building here at Alex Renew. These 11 people we've selected, they all applied to be part of the program. We selected them across the organization, so we have a good cross-functional team. We have representatives from each operational team, each maintenance team, the lab, and several of our administrative teams to make sure that we have a good cross-functional team so that when we do things like incident investigations, which they're also a part of, we see the whole picture. We're not missing out on things, right? So when we look at an incident investigation, we do our root cause analysis, we get different viewpoints on that. Maybe operations looks at it differently from how maintenance does, differently from how IT does. So we have a good cross-sectional look at how that incident occurred and then what corrective actions we can take. Because while I can make a suggestion about a corrective action that we can take, on paper it may look great, in real life it might not work at all. So we can get that input from these leaders out in the field who can give us a better idea of how we can actually implement safety in a way that works for us. Like Mr. Carl said, every year we celebrate Safety Month. And what we're doing with Safety Month is really trying to generate excitement and engagement around safety. So every year we do a company-wide competition and we have a bunch of different events that we put on, things that happen here, things that we have employees do at home, because like Mr. Carl said, we don't want safety to just be here. We want our employees to go home safe every day, yes, but we also want them to come back safe every day. We want them to take safety with them on the road and at home so that every day that they come back to work, they come back to work in as safe a manner as they left as well. So a few exciting things that we've got set up for this year. We have a team building exercise, a competition that promotes collaborative problem solving that's focused on our Alex Renew safety practices and procedures. We have heat stress training. We've got first aid, CPR, AED training that people can elect to engage in. We've got a distracted driving challenge that we're doing. We've got a healthy home challenge. We've got an emergency preparedness challenge, and all of it feeds into this competition and people get really competitive about it. So they start engaging with it and get excited about it, talk their teammates into getting involved with it, and doing their homework as well. So it's a lot of fun that we do. People really enjoy it, and it's one of our fun initiatives that we do each year. The next initiative that Mr. Carl mentioned is what we call our Safe Start training. So when we look at that behavioral part of the training, let me back up. When we talk about safety, right, we talk a lot about looking for hazards, right? Engineering out hazards, mitigating controls, right? But when it comes down to it, we send a person out to do a job or a team out to do a job. And when they get out there, it doesn't matter how much we've engineered out a hazard. They're always going to have the choice whether or not to do that job safely, right? And sometimes the choice comes down to how much skill they have. So a lot of what we've been doing is trying to build that personal skill level. Okay? And the way we've been building that personal skill level is really focusing on what we call human factors, right? And those human factors, we really focus on 4 main states, right? And those 4 states are rushing, frustration, fatigue, and complacency. Right? Because these are human factors, things that we are all going to experience every day, multiple times a day, maybe multiple of these at once, right? I couldn't tell you the last time that I went a full day without experiencing at least one of these, if not multiple of them, right? I was on my way here today for this meeting and I hit traffic, right? And so now I'm starting to get into a rush. And so I've experienced these today already. When these states are normal human factors, right? They're going to happen to us. So we're not trying to prevent that, right? It's going to happen. It's fine. What those states lead to is us making errors. Right, so the 4 main errors that we focus on are taking your eyes off task, taking your mind off task, losing your balance, traction, or grip, or putting yourself in the line of fire, right? And when you're in those states and you start to make those errors, it causes your risk to increase, right? Now, that doesn't mean that every time you're in that state, you make that error that you're going to get hurt. Sometimes you get away with rushing and going a little faster than you should on 95, right? That happens. But every time you increase your risk, you raise your risk tolerance, right? And as you raise your risk tolerance, you raise your appetite for risk, how much risk you're willing to accept. The more risk you bring into your life, the more likely it is that it's going to hit one of those times, right? It's going to hit eventually. Maybe not every time, but one of these times it's going to hit. So what we would try to do is we try to interrupt what we call the state to error path, right? So we're going to experience the states, but we want to stop them from creating the errors. And we do that through what we call critical error reduction techniques. Okay? And our 4 critical error reduction techniques are: number 1, look at others for risk potential, right? So I can look at people around me and I look for risky behavior that they're taking for it, right? Maybe I see someone looking at their phone while they're driving, or eating a sandwich, or digging around on the floorboard for something they've dropped while they're driving on 95, right? As I look at other people for risk, it's going to automatically bring my risk level up and bring my risk tolerance down, right? As I look at other people engaging in risky behavior. The second thing is to analyze close calls, right? When we have a close call, whether you walk out on your sidewalk on an icy morning, slip on the ice, do we stop and think about it? Or do we just continue on with our day and forget all about it? Well, if we take the time to stop and analyze those close calls, think about what states were we in, what errors did we make, how can we prevent that from happening again in the future, we can learn from those small things and prevent big things from happening. So we analyze the close calls. The third thing we do is practice building habits, right? Practice building habits, whether that's putting your seatbelt on when you get in the car, whether that's putting your PPE on before you go out in the field, or whether that's moving your eyes before you move your body, before you move your car, or something like that. These, as we build this habit strength, start to protect you passively, right? If you're in the habit of putting on your seatbelt, you don't even think about it when you get in the car. You get in the car and you put on your seatbelt, and now you've got that protection there that you didn't even have to think about. So that's something else we can do to protect ourselves. And then the last of our critical error reduction techniques is self-triggering. Once we know about the states, rushing, frustration, fatigue, we start to identify them in ourselves, then we have the opportunity to do something about it, right? So as I'm rushing to get here in time for this meeting, I can stop and say, hey, I recognize that I'm rushing, I'm running a little bit late. I need to take a breath and slow down, get off of the bumper of this guy in front of me to make sure, because if he slams on his brakes, I'm not going to have time to stop, and then I'm not going to make it at all, right? Maybe I'm going to the hospital tonight instead of board meeting. So I can now have a choice to do something about it, self-trigger, and stop myself from making those errors. So those are the critical error reduction techniques that we use to interrupt the state to error risk pattern. And like Mr. Carl said, we're going to give you homework. That's why I'm explaining this a little more than maybe you'd like to know about. But one of the ways that we like to keep this fresh in our minds, since we've been doing this training for a while, is we like to tell stories. And stories do a couple things for us. Number one, they allow us the opportunity to share with each other, to learn from each other, from experiences that we've had. And it also tells our employees that it's okay to tell stories. It's okay to talk about a time that I did something that was unsafe, right? It's okay to bring things up, because the last thing we want is for people to feel like it's not okay to report things, right? So if it's okay with you, I'd like to tell you a little story. This is a story that happened to me. This happened in my life. Back when I was in college, online dating had just barely started to become a thing. There were no, what are they? The apps. There was no swiping left or right. I don't know anything about that. But Facebook had just come online, things like that. So I was talking to this girl online. We went out for a first date, right? We drove separately to the restaurant, had dinner, and then drove separately to another place and played some games together. I thought the date was going great. It wasn't, but I thought everything was good. All right. At the end of the date, night's over. She gets in her car and she leaves. I get in my car and I head out. She's a little bit ahead of me. And as I start going down the road, I see her car and I think, hey, that's her in front of me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to catch up. I'm going to flirt with her while she's in that car up there. So on this 45-mile-an-hour road, I step on the gas and I start speeding up until I'm doing about 75 miles an hour on this road. All right. Now I'm 18 at this time, so I've been driving for a couple of years. I know what I'm doing, right? I got this under control. It's been 2 years. I've got it. So I do catch up with her, and I turn to the side. I'm waving. I'm trying to get her attention, right? She's not giving me the time of day, right? I glance back over to see what's in front of me, and I see her lane's going straight. My lane's not. My lane's taking a hard right turn onto the freeway, and when it makes this hard right turn, there's about a 15-foot embankment It's very steep right there. So I slam on the brakes. I go flying off this embankment. I caught some serious air coming off of this embankment. All 4 tires off the road, going down this embankment. Landed in the little ditch there, totaled the car. Airbag went off. Catalytic converter was under it. Had to call the tow truck. Tow truck shows up. Police show up. They, shine the lights in my eyes. Are you drunk? No, I'm just stupid. The airbag went off, which saved my life. Right? I walked away with a burn on my arm. Right? That was the only damage that I took. Without that airbag, I could have easily died from that injury. Right? My cousin who lived nearby came out. He looked at the skin marks. He said, "Man, you didn't even try to turn. You just went straight off. Why didn't you try to turn?" I said to him, and I still believe this to this day, if I had tried to turn, I would have flipped that car. I would have rolled it down that embankment, and then I'd be dead for sure. So this could have been a lot worse. Overall, I'm very lucky to have walked away from this incident. So as we tell these stories, we don't just want to listen to a fun story. It's a lot of fun to listen to, but we also want to learn something, right? So we analyze stories after we tell them. When we analyze stories, the first thing we want to look at is, did I cover all the 4 necessary elements of a good story? Right, so there are 4 good elements of a Safe Start story. The first one is telling what happened, right? What activity were we engaged in? The second is what states I was in. The third is what errors I made. And then the fourth is how it could have been worse. Right? So when we tell a Safe Start story, make sure we've got those 4 elements included. So I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Which states do you think I was experiencing at the time of this incident? Rushing. Frustration? Maybe a little bit.
Complacency.
Complacency. Yeah. I said rushing and complacency. That's what I said. Yeah, but I could see the argument for frustration for sure. Now, which errors do you think I made?
Fast.
What's that?
Drive fast.
Driving fast. Yeah.
That's not on
It's
that.
not a pass.
All of them. Yeah. My mind and my eyes were on flirting with that girl next to me, right? And then I lost traction, obviously flew off the embankment, and then I put the ground in my line of 5. Yeah, so I made all of those errors. So this is how we teach. This is how we share these stories and how we keep it fresh in everybody's mind. Okay? When we talk about safety, every time we talk about safety, we have to talk about statistics, right? We track our safety metrics and we look at different things, especially our total recordable incident rate, to look at how our safety program is improving, how it's tracking, to look at our progress. We use this to improve our training, our tools, to measure different outcomes, celebrate our successes. This is our TRIR over the last 11 years. So you can see it's been kind of up and down. We've recently launched a new dashboard, like I said earlier, where employees can report more things. We've tried to make it easy and intuitive, very accessible for employees to report things. We've done extensive trainings, practices. One of the things that we're focusing on Safety Month is reporting, because we want to start getting a lot more data in. We want to encourage our employees to report things. A lot of times the danger is, we want to focus on getting to 0 incidents, right? We don't want anyone to get hurt, and that's absolutely true. But when you focus really hard on getting to 0, sometimes an unintended side effect is encouraging underreporting, encouraging employees to hide things, feeling like they'll get in trouble if they, report that they had an injury, whether it's small or big, right? They may try to hide things. And that's something we absolutely don't ever want to do. We want to hear everything that happens, right? That's why we share these stories. This is why we bring up these initiatives, because we want to hear these things. Because when it's small, we can learn from it for free, right? We can learn from it for free. We can do something to stop us from having to pay in pain and blood in the future. So we build these to get, a lot better data. So we'll have better insight on what's happening, better metrics to track so that we can make better informed decisions going forward in the future. So like Mr. Carl said, I do have a little bit of homework for you. I don't know, did we have cards in the folders?
No,
Okay, I'm passing out cards. Okay, so this is a Safe Start story card. So this is just a little tool here to help you kind of craft your story. So you'll see there's a little spot for you to put a summary of your story and make sure that you've got all 4 of your necessary elements here. And then there are information on the states. Oh, got two here. The errors, as well as our critical error reduction techniques. So if you would, please, to help us celebrate Safety Month this year, put together a story for us by the next board meeting and bring it back so that you can share with us and help us celebrate Safety Month. And that is all that I had, unless anyone has any questions.
I do.
Yes.
So you said you guys are very focused on the statistics. Are you guys looking on the lagging indicator or leading indicator?
That's a great question. I love that question. So a big thing of what we're trying to do with this new dashboard that we're implementing is bringing in those leading indicators, things like how much safety training is getting done, what percentage of that's being done, how many audits and inspections are getting done, how quickly action items are getting closed out. So we're looking at both. Absolutely. Great question.
What happened in 2023?
In 2023, 2023.
We had a person fall down a set of stairs, nobody won.
Yeah, when I first fall down a set of stairs, we had a guy, he was on a ladder. The ladder shifted out from underneath him and he fell. And then what was the third? It was, okay, someone was turning a chain valve and some dust, some rust from the chain valve fell down in his eye and he scratched his cornea. That was the third one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
Those are the statistics.
Yes.
It looks to me that the accident rate is pretty random.
It can be very jumpy. It can, have several years where we have zero and then have a bad year here or there. It's hard to predict. Obviously we do our best to keep it as close to zero as we can, but we don't want to, again, encourage under.
Sometimes it ebbs and flows from turnover. Sometimes you've got a big influx of new hires that come in. They may not be as trained, they may not know our environment. Sometimes you'll see your safety incidents go up when you've got new hires. Knock on wood, wherever, we've been extremely lucky and that has not happened. Because we do such a good job of onboarding and safety. We get them right into our Safe Start training and various other safety training that we do for a year. So we really have improved upon the entire safety program. Behavior-based safety part of it was just the next logical step to get to that.
Any other question?
I mean, your safety specialists,
Yes, sir.
do they have a day job? Does the,
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So they are operators. They are mechanics, our CSTs, our control systems technicians, engineers, operations and maintenance specialists. So yeah, they have full-time jobs, and then we ask from them about 8 hours a month is what we estimate the time commitment to be.
Mr. Rigby, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I
Could you
appreciate
make
it.
sure that Mr. Hill gets a copy of this?
Yeah, so again, celebrating Safety Month, you all don't have to share a Safe Start story. Just, one or two, whoever's comfortable, whoever has a good story, be a good way to kick off the board meeting and go.
Thank you.
And my apologies earlier, I missed introducing Phillips and Hayden. I know you were back there. Okay. All right. So we're going to turn it over to Ms. Orm and Ms. Landry to present an approach on sustainability. I think for the first time in our organization's history, one of our board strategic goals is sustainability. So we thought it was time to at least provide an update on how we're meeting the strategic goal of sustainability. Ms. Orm's going to kick things off.
So slides, again, my name is Mallory Horn. I'm the new Sustainability and Resilience Manager here at Alex Renew. I'm about a month in, so still getting my head wrapped around everything, but very glad to be here. Slide there. I am coming to you from USAID, where I was doing environmental and social safeguarding. And before that, the Arizona Department of Environment. My educational background is international law, environmental policy, and sustainable development.
So Kelly Landry, I work in the Fairfax, Virginia Hazen office for about coming up on 8 years this summer. I engineer, primarily working in wastewater, water reuse, also do a lot of sustainability work. I am our planning sustainability lead for Hazen. So really excited to, this is my first project with Alex Reduce. So excited to task with you guys. Prior to Hazen, I was getting my graduate degree at University of Florida in environmental engineering. So primarily that's all I do is engineering, environmental and sustainability. So super excited to work with you guys.
All right, so thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be presenting this to you today. Obviously, this is a really exciting initiative for Alex Renew, so we're pleased to have the opportunity to talk about it. So just brief overview, I am going to cover our sustainability background, sort of going over our motivations and trends that we're seeing in water infrastructure. Then we'll move into sustainability here at Alex Renew, so reviewing some of our strategic objectives and current initiatives. And then Kelly will take it over to discuss our approach to our organizational sustainability plan, and then go through our next steps. So we'll jump right in here. All right, so starting with our motivation, why is this important to us? We ended up grouping this into sort of two main buckets. The first being the value of sustainability to the broader community. In 2015, the United Nations adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, acknowledging the need to develop a plan for addressing some of our major shared global challenges. So the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, are intended to serve as a collective global roadmap towards prosperity for people and the planet. Going through the 17 goals, 5 of them really jumped out to me as having very direct relevance with what we do here at Alex Renew. That included clean water and sanitation, industry, innovation and infrastructure, sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and life below water. But really a case could be made for several others as well. So that really just underscores how uniquely positioned we are as a wastewater treatment plant to have a pretty widespread impact on sustainability. So that's, sort of one of our mandates is this global call to action via the SDGs. The other is our local community. There is clear recognition of the value and importance of sustainability here in Alexandria. In 2019, Alexandria adopted the Environmental Action Plan 2040, committing to building a thriving and sustainable community. And that plan really mirrors the SDGs in multiple ways. It's really important to us to be in lockstep with the Environmental Action Plan and recognize our own role in supporting the goals and objectives of our community. We are explicitly referenced as an accountable party for focus area 6 of the plan. That is water resources. But again, like the SDGs, we have tie-ins across several other areas: energy, green building, education and outreach, et cetera. So we're in this really fortunate and really somewhat rare position of recognizing the global importance of sustainability and also having that local commitment, the community support, the resources, et cetera, to do something about it. So that's really our call to action. And these two parallel frameworks really help serve as the basis for how we're approaching our role and responsibility to sustainability. Right, so getting a little bit more specific and zooming in on sustainability trends in water infrastructure and resource management. When we take any actions, we want to be asking, is this bearable, equitable, and viable from a community, economy, and environmental perspective? When we find harmony in those spaces, that's where we can identify sustainable actions. As far as specific trends in the sector, we're seeing movement towards energy management and reduction, carbon emission inventory and reduction, water reuse, integrated water resource management, and adoption of sustainability frameworks such as LEED and Envision. Just as a side note for anyone who might not be as familiar with that terminology, LEED and Envision come up a lot in sustainability planning. Both are rating and certification frameworks for sustainability, with the primary difference being buildings versus infrastructure. So LEED guides green building design and occupant impact, whereas Envision is used for infrastructure specifically and looks more towards the extended impacts of that infrastructure on the broader community. So these are broadly best practices for sustainability in utilities, and each of these areas can fit into this sustainability matrix when they're planned and implemented properly. We have industry peers that are investing in these areas. We currently have several initiatives that align with these focus areas. What we don't yet have is that sort of formal implementation or organizational framework to guide those initiatives. Right. So here at Alex Renew, we've organized our approach by drawing down the work that all of you as our board did in developing our strategic plan and our environmental sustainability definition of being good stewards of our resources to minimize our impact on the environment. So taking from that, we have our 3 board-defined sustainability objectives. So that includes integrating sustainability into infrastructure investments and operations, striving toward net carbon zero operations, and recover and beneficially reuse resources from our wastewater. So we're building upon these objectives to frame our organizational sustainability plan and move from, focusing on just sustainable projects into sustainability as a core strategy in our operations. Right, so taking that and expanding into our 2025 annual goals, our focus today is on those first 3. So developing an organizational-wide sustainability plan, developing specifications for capital projects to audit and reduce resource consumption, and updating our sustainable purchasing policy. So as we focus on those 3 initiatives, these are really going to help inform and strategically implement the rest of the initiatives that underpin those board objectives. So we did also want to mention the timing of this process relative to phase forward. We're going to get into specific timeline details later in the presentation, but we just wanted to emphasize that this is a really important time to be methodically approaching sustainability as we proceed with phase forward. We have this opportunity to put this plan in action alongside these major plant investments so that we can integrate sustainability with biosolids certification, with headworks renewal, with process optimization and nutrient reduction. So we just wanted to highlight that these things won't be happening in silos. We're going to capitalize on the opportunity that this period of change brings us. And likely we're going to draw upon some really good lessons learned about how we need the plan to support and guide our future major investments. So I mentioned earlier that we already do have a good basis for sustainability. And we've been investing in many of the trends that are present in sustainable wastewater treatment. So here we have the key areas that we see as our foundation that we want to continue to build upon. I won't go through all of these, but I just wanted to highlight that sustainability touches so much. It definitely has overlap with our community benefit policy and our environmental justice action plan. But these initiatives are all owned and managed by different people, different departments. And so we want to make sure the plan is going to talk to those, track them, connect them, and support all of those initiatives. Our goal with this process is not to reinvent the wheel. We have a lot of the puzzle pieces here already. Our goal is to really take stock of where we are now, all of the investments that we've made and bring those really strong elements into a coordinated strategic plan. Miss if we didn't, take a moment to illustrate and celebrate these really significant projects that we've already invested in. These projects have really helped us integrate sustainability into Alex Renew's operations. Our nutrient management facility was Envision Platinum certified in 2016. Our environmental center was LEED Platinum awarded in 2016. The Innovation District Pumping Station was Envision verified in 2024. The pumping station superstructure, we're targeting a LEED Gold certification for that, which would be the very first pumping station to receive that level of certification. So really excited about that. And for our tunnel system, we're targeting Envision Gold. So, we have a lot to be proud of and a lot of really good precedent already set for our sustainable infrastructure. We want to keep that momentum going as we think strategically about our organizational sustainability plan. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
All right, so as Valerie mentioned, to further advance and streamline Alex Renew's sustainability efforts, this project will leverage sustainability goals that were identified by the board to develop a comprehensive organizational sustainability plan. So the plan is intended to develop actionable strategies to implement sustainability across the organization, develop standards so that there is a streamlined approach for implementing sustainability across projects internally, and then ultimately enhance benefits. And so why is this important? So sustainability organizational plans do provide this actionable strategy. We've seen that municipalities as well as other utilities have developed community or organizational sustainability plans over the past decade or more. And so the images on the right are just a couple examples of where we've seen sustainability management plans be developed. And so what this really helps to do is help support alignment with your long-term goals and objectives. So for example, Denver Water, one of their initiatives, one of their goals was to reduce carbon emissions by 50% in 2025. And by 2023, they've already reduced their carbon emissions by 30%. So what this does is really help to provide accountability, enhance your accountability, and drive operational efficiency. It can also improve decision-making as well as build stakeholder confidence and encourage continuous improvement. And so for the sustainability plan, we have broken it out into 3 component areas and have 3 sort of silos. So the first one we mentioned is organizational initiatives. So the intent here is to develop initiatives and a process and procedures to inform administrative processes and decision-making. The second are standards. And so the intent here is to support capital projects and operation of wastewater assets. And then the third component is the community. So identification of initiatives that very directly benefit the community. Of course, all of the initiatives will more indirectly support as well. So one of the really important initial steps for developing the sustainability plan was establishing the guiding principles for developing initiatives. So the guiding principles were established at the start of this project. We're a month or so into this task, and so what we did is we had workshops with Mr. Carl and Mallory and Allison to talk about what are the drivers for your sustainability initiatives and sort of what are the key questions that Alex Renew would want to ask to gauge whether an initiative should be incorporated into Alex Renew's sustainability portfolio. And so the guiding principles are sort of broken out into the 2 key pillars of environmental and social impacts. And these are really meant to be questions asked. So does the initiative reduce negative environmental impact? Does it improve resource recovery, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or align with the city's environmental initiatives? And then from the social side of things, how does it advance Alex Renew's environmental justice initiatives? How does it align with the community benefit policy? Does it add value to customers? Does it benefit staff? And really the intent is that these guiding principles help support several key outcomes. And the key outcomes are to build institutional resilience, reduce operational costs, and of course, promote a culture of sustainability stewardship with staff. And so another key component that's really important for the development of this plan is going to be stakeholder engagement. This is really critical for achieving success. So in my past experience on various sustainability projects, having that, engagement with both internal and or external stakeholders can really help promote transparency as well as foster long-term ownership. And so we do have a plan to really continuously engage stakeholders throughout the development of the plan. The intent here is to have workshops and one-on-one discussions to make sure that we engage, the internal stakeholders to see if there's any gaps that we're missing, and also understand what are some challenges they might have with, the development of the plan, get their feedback and make sure it's incorporated. And then, of course, stakeholder engagement is not just a part of this task, but it's going to be a continuous process for the sustainability initiative. And so the plan will also have some input and guidance on how stakeholders should be engaged throughout implementation of those initiatives. So this is just a high-level outline of the organizational sustainability plan. These are just the key chapters that we've identified that will be implemented. We'll just have generally a background highlighting all the great things that Alexander has already done with respect to sustainability, and then also lay out the path forward. And so providing an overview of what is the methodology for developing sustainability plan, and then the detailed initiatives as well as approaches for tracking and reassessment, and then supporting appendices that we'll talk about a little bit further, but really are the standards that we talked about earlier. And so really the intent there is to have a really actionable plan that is, it serves as a living document, but provides Alex all the information needed so that it can be implemented successfully in the future. So as Mallory mentioned, we are going to be developing standards and specifications to implement sustainability across the organization. The top 3 items, which are the sustainability design standards, construction specifications, and third-party verification SOPs, these 3 items are really intended to support Alex Renew's engineering staff to implement sustainability within capital projects at Alex Renew. And so this will provide the guidance to make sure that capital projects such as the Phase Forward projects can implement sustainability aspects. The bottom 2 items, which are the internal sustainability SOPs and the project sheets template, are intended to support implementation of sustainability across the organization and are intended to be used throughout all of the departments. So we'll have internal sustainability SOPs. So this might be, I mentioned updating the sustainable purchasing policy, but it might also include additional SOPs to help support sustainability. And also we are going to have this project sheet template, which I'm going to talk through in more detail on the next page, but really this is intended to provide insight and all the information necessary to implement those initiatives for the ones that we've identified through this process, and then also provide a template for future initiatives that Alex might identify once this project is wrapped up. So this is just an example project sheet that's under draft, but what we wanted to do was identify what are all the key elements that will be needed to implement a sustainability initiative with all the information that Alex Renew will need to know to get things moving. So we have it broken out to 3 different sub areas. All the components that are listed in blue is primarily background information on the initiatives that we'll identify. So we're just a description of the initiative, and then really importantly, how does it align with the Environmental Justice Action Plan and the community benefit policies? Again, we don't want these sustainability initiatives to be implemented in a silo, but they want them to make sure that they communicate with these other plans and initiatives that Alex Renew has. We'll identify how the initiative aligns with the guiding principles, and then what type of initiative is it? Is it an organizational initiative? Is it a standard? Is it community focused? And the items that are highlighted in green are more quantitative, information. So what's the priority level of the initiative? What's the estimated cost for implementation? And then what's the timeline? So when is it intended to be started and wrapped up, or is it a continuous process? What's the anticipated level of effort? And then importantly, who is going to be leading this effort? Who is going to be the lead champion for this initiative? And then who are the key partners and stakeholders that need to be engaged in the development of the incorporation of the initiative, and then who's ultimately going to be impacted or working with that initiative. The items that are highlighted in purple are more qualitative aspects. So we wanted to identify early on if there might be any potential challenges or to implementation that should be kept in mind. And then also any potential training requirements that staff might need to be able to successfully incorporate those initiatives into their day-to-day life. And then ultimately on the bottom, we also want to identify what's the outcome, the anticipated outcomes of these initiatives. And then are there any outputs or indicators that are tracked to indicate, to track sustainability performance and serve as key performance indicators. And then the last section that we'll have in the plan is an approach for reassessment of the plan and the initiatives. And so, you know, the intent is that this plan will be written, but we don't want it to just, you know, be just a singular version. We want to provide a framework for Alex Renew to come back and say, you know, how are the initiatives going? We want to track the initiative progress, identify areas of improvement, and then also have a process for incorporating new initiatives. And so for sustainability projects, we will leverage those example project sheets to provide the information that's needed to support implementation into the CIP, for example. So how does that initiative align with specific goals and objectives? And then for internal sustainability initiatives, there are already some pre-existing processes and procedures for implementing general other types of initiatives, not sustainability specific. So we'll be leveraging some of those processes and procedures to help Alex Renew implement sustainability initiatives moving forward on a more internal basis. And so really the end result is to have a comprehensive organizational sustainability plan that does serve as a living document. We want to be able to provide something that is adaptable to changing conditions and allows for continuous improvement. But the intent ultimately is to provide actionable steps for Alex Renew and integrate sustainability into operations. And so looking ahead at the schedule, as Mallory mentioned, the timing of this task is really optimal for the Phase Forward project. And what we want to make sure is provide all these resources so that they can be implemented into some of these key projects that are coming down the line in the future. And so in general, the goal is to have the sustainability standards and specifications for capital projects finalized in October of this year, so that they can be easily implemented into some of these Phase Forward projects that are already underway. And then the intent is also to have the final sustainability plan, the organizational sustainability plan finalized in January 2026. So that'll follow slightly later because just based on the timing of the design projects, we wanted to have the specs and standards as an early delivery item for Alex Renew. So with that, that's just generally overview of the sustainability plan. I'm happy to take any questions you guys have.
It's the important slide. Maybe when we went through the deck, we might have missed a little context. There's 7 engineering firms supporting us right now across the multi-phase program that is Phase Forward and River Renew. On top of that, we also have 3 separate contractors, 2 job order contractors, and then another contractor doing CPT. So we felt, you know, that prioritizing the standards and our standard approaches to make sure we're getting consistency across all the jobs was our number one priority. So that's why you see us phase in by October to have those standard specs. Not that they don't exist now, I think they need some updating. Updating those standard specs and what our goals are for each of those projects now before the big GMPs hit on the solids and headworks project.
So you basically. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So what we have up there, the building A 60. So we put building A expansion up there because that's the biggest package we have associated with the headworks project, or what we call PPSU. We're already past 30% design, so we want to make sure we get these incorporated between 60 and 90. A little late on that job, but looking forward, when we start looking at the second biggest package, building K, and even looking forward when we do our dryer. By the time we get these sustainability standards done, the dryer facility will be on its 0 to 30% path. So on the PPSU project, how it works, we're catching up a little bit, but we're still gonna get it incorporated for the big GMP in the job. Right now, it's equipment purchases, not heavy construction, so these specs don't get applied to the work that we're doing.
Ms. Landry, Ms. Orm, thank you. I had a question looking at slide 18, and this is probably getting in the weeds, but this shows I'm sorry. Shows an example project sheet. Is this an example for specific initiatives that you apply across the board? This is for each of the capital projects.
So it's more, it's supposed to be the initiatives that would be applied across the board. So for example, enhancing biogas recovery, I think is one of the initiatives on the list of the board objectives. So the intent would be to have a project sheet that sort of provides the information necessary to take that one specific initiative and implement it.
And part of the intent being, that, this could be scaled to essentially any size of project. So if we're reducing plastic use here in the EC, we could use this to guide that initiative. We could use this for any major infrastructure project. So, the intent is to make this really adaptable and flexible for the need.
Thank you.
Just for the board, you will next budget cycle be seeing the sustainability, EJ, and community benefit incorporated on project sheets that are part of the budget. We're not there this year. We're getting even more into the weeds, creating a CIP task force that Ms. Worm and our finance team and engineering team will be part of to help prioritize, what projects are going to have sustainable elements incorporated within them and what those guidelines will be. So next year, flip over the CIP sheet, you'll see a whole backside summarizing on initiatives for what we just talked about today.
This also ties in directly with our overall operational goals, set up our strategic goals. So, thank you. Sure.
Is there going to be any cost benefit analysis done to see is the benefit we're getting the cost? So
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll definitely be integrated project by project.
For future planning.
If we do a project or not?
Yeah.
Oh, well, when
Understand
we're
these are-
procuring work,
Yeah.
when we're procuring work, like, so if we go out for an RFP, and are we gonna put are we gonna score the company's sustainability? We haven't talked about. Certainly could.
Thank you. Regards to reclaimed water, we talked here about maximizing activities on site. What about off site? We're in an area with a tremendous amount of development potential for residential. A very big project actually just announced that there's probably haven't done the engineering on yet over by Wegmans, that we can create a water reuse district, have the city create it and say to the developers, this is not a choice. This is, you got it. This is part of your infrastructure obligation. You're gonna have to be able to look at that this year.
Yeah, I think our challenge is developing, so I guess our purple pipe right now is at the intersection of Hollow Lane and Remember Street, right? That's our stop. I think getting the purple pipe, a part of creating that district and getting the city support is how do we fund the line to get from Alex Renew to Hoffman or to Zell or whatever development we have in the area. That's something we need to start discussing with Aaron in the city to figure out how we can promote that. There are also other thoughts of how this development adjacent to us shapes up. We do have a commitment to provide reclaimed water to the Zell development. That's why we have a stub out of where it is now. And we also do have we will likely have to expand our system because River News is going to take up a lot of our recall water too for watching on the screens. Heating and cooling and the superstructure. So we'll likely have to not only run the line, but also beef up the system, to provide additional service. I think our other challenge too is not just with the purple pipe, but we do a bulk fill station. How do we promote bulk filling and use of reclaimed water from the plant for landscapers, irrigation, people going out and watering plants? How do we make that that's something that's ready now? How do we make that more of a attractive resource to the community? So those are two things that we're currently working on. I don't know, as far as what you want to talk about, what we're trying to do legislatively for water reuse and some of the efforts we're doing. Santa and in the weeds. But we did meet with Hoffman recently about this, and I think the challenge is funding. How do you fund the pipe to get them here today?
There are, for example, Potomac Yard, the developer contribution that everybody within a certain district part of Potomac Yard, when that part develops, is required to pay so much per square foot of development because they'll pay for the station. And some model like that could very well work. It's the same principle as tap fee, as basically the tap fee, the capacity fee the city charges. Same theory, it could be probably require the city to step in and use their authority and land use authority to require something that or to set those standards. And also be a recovery charge. Some charge for it that could go pay the debt service on whatever it would cost to extend the pipe. So there are a bunch of ways it could be done. I think it's worth. We have a major opportunity that's going to get by us in the next 10 years because this will get built out and then it'll be too late. But thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Just a couple updates on the monthly report. On the page 2, nutrient, I gotta use these project names. Nutrient reduction agreement. We got FAQs in today. We'll be issuing an RFP in July and then circling back to the board in January for approval. Top of page 3, coming off the back end of River and New, we've had a lot of community support. Some of that funds are going to go away as we sunset the River New program. It's really nice to hear and say. So what we're doing is going out for an RFP for communication services. So we'll likely get proposals. That RFP went out April 1st. We'll get proposals then in June, and then we'll bring that to the board in September. Perhaps in July, we'll come to the board to just a quick overview of what the contract looks like. Mr. Robertson can walk through, and Ms. Bain can walk through what we're looking for in a communication service. Just so you have an idea what you're approving in advance of the September meeting, knowing that's all. Pretty exciting month. Staying on page 3, looking at thriving workforce. 2 days, our technical trainer, Heather Kerr, will be recognized by the Chamber as part of their Community Champions honors as Utility Employee of the Year. So we were really proud of Heather to be acknowledged by the Chamber. In addition to that, Mr. Robertson was also selected as one of Alexandria's 40 under 40. So congrats, Mr. Robertson. So I think also to note under thriving workforce, we were at the job fair on May 3rd supporting the city and Congressman Meyer. If you watch the news, you might have caught Miles in a clip talking to the, what was it on, WUSA, talking to one of the people seeking the job fair. So our table was featured. Strategic partnerships, Dr. Juan already gave an update on Pickering. We just talked a bit about sustainability. Moving forward to section 5. Nothing much to update on the budget. We did slightly lower our projection for the end of fiscal year. Now we're getting close. Mr. Jinks, we're now projecting 61.9 million, which was a slight reduction in what we were projecting. Won't be as large of a surplus. All right. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Robertson to walk through delinquencies, some of our outreach, as well as an update on the week backward.
For delinquencies, look at the first section 5.2, you'll see the number of delinquent accounts as well as the total dollar amount slightly decreased. We're under $1 million for the first time last 2 years anyways. That's 999,000, but we're going to count that as under $1 million. I will point out, so if you look at the paragraph under there, approximately 58% of that arrearage is represented in scheduled payment plans. So that's $580,000. So we're kind of getting to the point now where our payment plans are covering a huge percentage of our delinquent. That's gonna make that curve come down very slowly, but I think the benefit to our customers is pretty significant. From a community engagement standpoint, actually, I'll touch on these. So really quick, the main thing to highlight here, I think the most exciting thing is we gave out $11,000 in disbursements last month, and now we gave out 9,000. So we've had back-to-back good months. We're seeing pretty good numbers so far this month as well. So I think we're starting to see people recognize the and request distribution. So I think that's a positive thing. In addition to our payment plan numbers still staying strong. Still have only got about 183 service disconnections not payment. That's in part because so many folks are on payment plan. So we're not able to disconnect that many people, but it's all positive. Good. Next slide. You can see we have a couple of instances for us to continue the same trend that we've seen month over month. So we're still seeing it in these specific areas. Then if you go to the final slide, these average and median numbers for dispersed and arrearage values are still relatively the same. The percentage of the average, for percent of arrearage that the disbursement is covering dipped slightly to 81%, but we're still covering the past due balances. So I think that's all positive so far. Any questions on it? On the community engagement side of things, we did host a community listening session at Royal Street. We got decent attendance. Like our final community listening session at that location, we had some good engagement there. In addition, we had Alex Renew staff visit Mount Vernon Recreation Center to meet with second and third grade students. So we're continuing to kind of roll that out in the last week or two as well. We're going out to local elementary schools and reading the new Moxie book. So we've had some great engagement. Getting multiple staff members to do the reading. Somebody from the communication side of things is telling me Alex or a story to his kids. So we've seen like really cool questions, a lot of great engagement from the kids. That's exciting. In addition, we welcomed quite a few visitors, and we hosted quite a few tours in the last month, including today for that.
And we'll just screen Moana on that.
Oh, yes.
With the court. Revenue dashboard, I'll make it super quick. Page 3. You'll see that the actual and planned is the same. That's because we got the updated schedule of values and schedule incorporated top right. On page 3, schedule values and schedule incorporated into this month's board report. So previously, we were still showing a complete date of July 1st, 2025. This shows July 1st, 2026. Spending, we're still hovering around the 500 million mark. Mr. Robertson already talked about our listening session. Mr. Beal already talked about our upcoming bush run restoration. So if we flip over to the last page, you'll see the photos. That is formerly a trench where the bush run interceptor is located on the left. And you can see that we've gotten now 200 native trees planted, 300 native shrubs. And on the right, you'll see the boardwalk that's going to extend from the old Octagon area in the middle of African American Heritage Park all the way down to Eisenhower Avenue. So that's what you see going in, and that is not wood decking, that is composite material. We're getting ready for our event on this stuff. Our medallion for the reflection goes through this one in today, so there's a lot of discussion on which way the words. Phase forward, we already talked about the procurement for nutrient reduction. Headworks, we are working on procuring the screen, grit removal systems, sludge pumps, and electrical. Biosolids, thank you again for the referral. We executed Amendment 2 on the biosolids project, and we also issued notice to proceed for dense-rate pretreatment for process optimization. Again, we'll be coming to the board in July 10th to do which is the Headworks project. So we'll have a busy meeting in July.
Anything else? No.
Chairman, the nutrient reduction project, isn't Alex Renew already compliant with nutrient limitations?
So nutrient reduction is tertiary. It's the tertiary. I mean, this is the meeting, what was it, back in March. The nutrient reduction is 2 projects. It's the tertiary upgrade. The tertiary filtering gates for the 1970s. We have and the filters, so it's the tertiary selling tanks and the filters. We've been having to band-aid that system. It was originally planned to be replaced, upgraded in 2018, but went on hold through Renew. The other piece of that, why it goes nutrient reduction, is also including the city for MTD capacity expansion. Still meeting our same nutrient goals, but therefore we have to reduce our total. That's how we came up with the nutrient reduction. All that system,
Got it.
the
Thank you.
entire tertiary system, but includes kind of those two. Under the phase 4.
Mr. Robertson, congratulations on your award.
Thank
you. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Really, we've been done for a long time. 7:41. 1 minute. Thank you. Thank you.